everyone. This is Fen with Warframe Unabridged. Today we are going to take another look at Oberon. We are looking at Renewal this time, and honestly, too many people take this power for granted. And the reason why is because we are spoiled with frames like Trinity, and we have later become spoiled with frames like Equinox, because their healing is so fast and in such a great amount that we have come to the point where we don't really appreciate Oberon and his capacity to heal. But I'm going, I hope, to change that. With Renewal, the base healing that you're going to receive is not that great. It's only 400 health over time, and the initial heal is 125. That's 525, and that's a pretty decent amount, but it's got to compete with frames that can instantaneously fully heal you without any travel time, like Blessing and like Equinox's ultimate Mend. Now, where this has to compete with it is not only in the travel time, but in the amount. It's a set amount that you can increase, and now we're looking at it with a good amount of duration and power strength. Now, duration both positively and negatively affects this no matter which way you go, whether you go with negative duration or if you go with positive duration. With negative duration, you're going to receive a very long heal time. And the rationale behind that is that duration mods it so that you heal quicker in a shorter period of time. But the bleed out slow increases with the amount of duration you've modded for. So at that point, it becomes a little bit of a nuanced decision you gotta make as to whether or not you want to mod for the inevitability of your projectiles moving too slowly to reach your ally in time, or if you want to try and just focus on self-healing, because that's the only way this power is really going to do a whole lot for you. So now we're going to take a look at the loadout. And the reason why I say loadout and not necessarily build is because a build isn't always enough. Now, a lot of YouTubers will give you amazing builds, but they won't necessarily supplement them with the weapons that will kind of cater to their strengths or their weaknesses. Now, with Oberon, we're going to go with primarily a corrosive build. We have 23,000 corrosive on our Tigress Prime, because on this build, we are dealing with a close-ranged build that basically necessitates you take damage in order for it to fully function. It's also going to have blast for a good amount of crowd control, and we are using that 100% status that you guys know and love. We are going with the Axomati, not with any corrosive, not with anything like that, just with a good amount of crit damage, so that when we are taking advantage of the lack of accuracy due to them being infected by your Reckoning or any other form of radiation that's going to reduce their accuracy, you are going to have range, you are going to have a good amount of damage, and so on and so forth. Finally, we are equipping the Ghazal Machete because of the way it synergizes with Jinn. And I realize other weapons are going to probably do a little bit more base damage, but once they get close enough to actually be any kind of a worry when it comes to Oberon, which you're kind of going to have to worry a little bit with this build since it's mostly focused on taking damage to keep your powers going, we are going to use Jinn and his ability Fatal Attraction, which is going to see that the enemies are more than capable of being dispatched at the end of it all, because of the crowd control that it provides, as well as the additional corrosive damage. And why corrosive is so important for Oberon is because he already deals a damage type that is going to numerically be superior because of the enemies that you are facing with the Grineer faction primarily take a bonus 75% damage from radiation. Now, corrosive is going to essentially give you the strength that you need to take out the remainder of the faction. And when you're dealing an amount equal to 23,000 of that, you're really going to have no problem with that. As for the build itself, we are starting out with corrosive projection because armor is such a nuisance. It's why they are the most powerful faction inherently. We are using power drift and we are using blind rage, and that is going to essentially cover all of the power strength we really need for the base build. We are also going to use as much efficiency as we can manage, which will bring our efficiency to 135%. We are going to use Rage to make back any deficit of energy that we have due to the fact that our powers cost so much. We are using Prime Continuity, Constitution, and Narrow-Minded to give us the greatest amount of duration that we could possibly manage despite having Fleeting Expertise equipped. And again, you saw the numbers, but just to recap, this is going to give a bleed out slow of 99.9%. It is going to give you a heal time of 4.5 seconds, in which time you will cover 856 energy, with the initial heal being a burst of 267. As we take a look at this build, we see that it regenerates a decent amount of health. It redeems it in a pretty quick amount of time. As you see, the amount of damage they're doing kind of at level 65 has a little bit of a trouble keeping up with how quick I regenerate it. In order to manage this, you gotta have a negative duration, because you really want it to heal you in as quick of a time span as is absolutely possible, which kind of leaves you with a negative duration with everything else. No two ways about it. It's really not easy to build for. It leaves you in a situation where you have to min-max in order to get something that's even reasonable to keep you alive. There are a lot of easier ways to help yourself make survivability in a game like Warframe. So let's take a look at the next build. The next build we're working on is a negative duration build with a ton of power strength, and this is going to give us a renewal that's going to last 80 seconds long, because we are bottoming out the duration. We are going with Vitality, Steel Fiber, and Rage, because you are going to be making back a lot of the energy you spend that way, and this is not a cheap build, despite having maximum efficiency mods equipped due to Blind Rage and due to the lack of duration. Keep in mind that the aim of this build is to face tank for the most part, and as a result you will be taking a lot of health damage. I would strongly recommend that you occasionally bring your Decaying Key to get your shields out of the way so that you can take more health damage. From there, we are going with the loadout, which includes Boar Prime, which has 100% status, as well as damage types focusing on corrosive and blasts, so that we can strip enemy armor and knock them around in equal amounts. We are going with the Brack for similar reasons. And for our melee, we are going with the Gazel Machete as augmented by Jin, who benefits the most to you in this match by equipping Fatal Attraction to bring them close, Coolant Link to slow the enemies once they are that close, Meta Ray to help you with your healing, and Vacuum to collect health orbs. Now this build, it's not bad. It's certainly by no means fantastic, and it's a little bit self-defeating at the same time. You see, when you look at what it can do this tremendous burst heal right at the beginning due to your massive amount of power strength. So a lot of people would probably be left wondering, why should I even bother to keep it going? Well, having long duration like this, it's going to give you steady health income, but you can cancel the power at any time because it is toggleable, at which point you can recast, which costs about as much as it does for like 3 seconds. Now, if you happen to be producing a plethora of health orbs, you're not really going to need to rely on that huge burst heal all of the time, but you'll still have that option if you ever get to be in a pinch. Do keep in mind that the casting time on this ability is horrible, and unless you have a good opening, I wouldn't recommend it. Keep in mind you have 3 different sources of health coming in right now. The first being your regeneration, the second being your sentinel, and the third being health orbs. And it gives you the ability to remain up close and personal with the enemies, and with energy conversion in there, you're also going to be able to further enhance that initial boost, as well as deal a little bit more damage when you need to. Is it really worth all of the extra effort? Well, you don't lose any range. You don't need to worry about with it, like you do with having maximized duration. And the reason why it's more of an issue that you lose range is because most of your powers suffer from that, like Hallowed Ground, Reckoning, and the Blind produced by Reckoning, and your Smite. But with this, your range is still at 100%, which keeps you versatile, and given the fact that you're regenerating so much health, you can spam your ultimate. For our final build, we are keeping almost everything the same, with one exception, and that is that we are dropping Blind Rage, and we are replacing it with Phoenix Renewal. Now, in the previous build, you saw that I was counteracting Blind Rage with Fleeting Expertise and Streamline at 5 each, But you don't need to get rid of that. In fact, you should keep fleeting expertise at 5 because we do want the negative duration. Suffice it to say, Tenno, that I would only ever recommend using this when you plan to use quick thinking. As you can see, it just maxed out my health, which is great. It went from having no health to being absolutely completely capped out, which is not anything that you're ever going to accomplish with quick thinking. Quick thinking costs more to equip. Quick thinking staggers you whenever you take damage to your energy pool. Quick thinking does not heal you at all, and quick thinking will not prevent you from dying if the total sum of damage that you take would have reduced your energy to nothing. With that being said, I'm going to get out of your hair. I really appreciate you following. This is Renewal.